Something has happened to you that you cannot explain. Maybe it happened this year. Maybe it happened 40 years ago and you still think about it. The phone rang the moment you were thinking about the person. The song came on. Their song on the one day you needed to hear it. You took a different road home for no reason you can name. And because you took it, something happened or something did not happen. And your whole life bent around that small, unexplainable choice. You met your husband because of a canceled bus. You found the letter the very week you finally needed to read it. A stranger said one sentence to you in a waiting room 30 years ago, and the sentence was exactly what you had been asking the silence that same morning. And when you tell these stories, if you tell them at all, you laugh a little at the end and you say the word the modern world gave you. Coincidence. Funny coincidence. Strange coincidence. And then you watch the other person's face to see if it is safe to say what you actually believe, because you do not believe it was a coincidence. You have never believed it. Somewhere underneath your politeness and your reasonableness, you know what you felt in that moment. You felt aimed at. You felt seen. You felt for 1 second the curtain move, and something behind the curtain looked back at you. Tonight, I am going to tell you the truth about coincidences the way my people understood it for 1,000 years before the modern world taught everyone to be embarrassed by their own experiences. And I will tell you where I stand right at the start. So there is no suspense about it. I am 70 years old. I have watched this world with great attention for all of those years, and I am telling you there are no coincidences. There are only messages, and there are people who have been taught not to read. Let me start with the word itself, because the word is doing something to you. Coincidence. Two things falling together. That is all the word means. Coincident together happening. Notice that the word does not explain anything. It only describes. The phone rang while you thought of her. Two things together happening. The word coincidence adds nothing except a shrug. But the modern world does not use it as a description. The modern world uses it as a dismissal. Say the word coincidence and the conversation is over. The file is closed. The strange, shining thing that happened to you is wrapped in gray paper and put away, and everyone can go back to pretending the world is a machine. My grandmother had no patience for this. She said the modern people are the only people in the history of the earth who experience a wonder and then apologize for it. Every other people who ever lived, everyone on every continent, in every age, looked at these moments and understood them the same way. The world is not a machine. The world is a web. And when a thread of the web moves on one side, the whole web feels it on the other. You thinking of your sister and your sister calling is not two events colliding by accident. It is one event happening in two places. That is the old understanding. And I will say it again because it is the center of this whole teaching. A coincidence is one event happening in two places. The web moved. You felt it. She felt it. The modern world calls the feeling imaginary. My people called the feeling proof. Let me give you the story that settled this question for me forever from my own family. My grandmother woke one morning when I was a boy, and she was different. Quiet in a heavier way than her usual quiet. And at breakfast, she said to no one in particular, "I need to go see my brother." Her brother lived a long way off in those days, a real journey, not a drive. And my grandfather said, "What reasonable men say, 'What's wrong? Did someone send word?' And she said, 'No, no word. I dreamed of water, and he was on the other side of it, and he was young again.' That is all she said. And my grandfather, to his lasting credit, did not argue with her. He arranged the journey. It took her the better part of 2 days to get there. Her brother, who had not been sick, who had sent no word, whose family had no warning to give, took to his bed the evening she arrived, and she was beside him, holding his hand when he crossed 4 days later. The last face he saw in this world was the one face from his childhood, the sister who had raised him after their mother went. And no letter, no telephone, no message of any human kind had told her to come. Now the modern world has to call that a coincidence. It has no other file to put it in. She dreamed of water on the right night by chance. She made a 2-day journey on a whim, and her timing was luck. And I want to tell you what it costs to believe that. It costs you the entire meaning of the most beautiful true story my family owns. And my grandmother, when anyone marveled at it in later years, would only shrug and say the sentence I have carried all my life. She said, "The thread pulled, I went," as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world. And in the world she lived in, the world I am trying to hand back to you tonight, it was. And here is what I want you to understand about that world before we go on. It was not a superstitious world. That is the insult the modern mind reaches for, and it is exactly backwards. My grandmother was the least superstitious person I have ever known. She did not fear black cats or knock on wood or carry charms. Superstition is fear of a world you believe is out to trick you. What she had was the opposite. Trust in a world she believed was speaking to her. She observed. She confirmed. She tracked her dreams and her tugs and her timings against what actually happened over 90 years the way any careful person tracks anything. And she followed the evidence of her own long life. And her evidence said, "The web is real. You have the same evidence. 90 years or 70 years or 60 years of it filed away under a word that told you not to look at it. Tonight, we are going to open the file. Before I share the next teaching, I need to tell you something. I am not going to be here forever, and most of what I know was never written anywhere. So I sat down and I wrote it. All of it. 20 teachings, 4 parts, in the order they were meant to be received. The ones about the web and how to feel it. The ones about reading what the world has been writing to you your whole life. The ones I have never said on camera. It is called the native way, and it costs less than one dinner you will not remember. Or look in the comments. But do not leave yet, because I am about to tell you the 3 kinds of so-called coincidences, and once you can tell them apart, you will never be able to unsee them again. The old people did not treat all strange timings the same. They knew there were kinds, and knowing the kinds is what turns confusion into reading. The first kind is the summons. This is when the web pulls 2 people toward each other. You think of someone all day out of nowhere, someone you have not thought of in months, and that evening the phone rings or the letter comes or you learn they passed that very week and had been asking for you. Every person watching this has at least one summons story, and most of you have many. The old understanding is simple. Love is a thread, and the thread does not go slack with distance or with years. When something moves at one end, the other end trembles. When your friend across the country enters her darkest week, the thread that connects you trembles, and you feel it as her name surfacing in your mind for no reason. That is not your mind wandering. That is a rival. The old people took it seriously the way you take a knock at the door seriously. When a person surfaces in your thoughts with weight, with insistence more than once, they did not wander in. They knocked, and the teaching is one word long. Answer. Call them that same day. Do not investigate whether it makes sense. I have answered that knock my whole life, and I am telling you the number of times the person on the other end said some version of "I cannot believe you called today of all days" is beyond my counting. You have felt the tug your whole life. You would just talk to call it nothing. It was never nothing. The second kind is the placement. This is when you are put somewhere or something is put in front of you at the exact time it matters. The book that falls open. The stranger in the waiting room. The wrong turn that becomes the whole story of your life. The job you did not get that broke your heart, that kept you in the town where you met the person who became your everything. Placements are almost impossible to see while they are happening. They look like luck or worse, like disaster. The canceled plan, the missed flight, the closed door. Only later, sometimes decades later, you stand at the window some evening and trace it backward, and your blood runs cold with gratitude. If the bus had come, if the door had opened, if I had gotten what I begged for. My grandmother called this reading the tracks backward. She said, "The web writes forward, but can only be read backward, and this is why the old people were peaceful in disruption. When the plan collapsed, when the door closed, they did not immediately grieve. They said, placement, let us see." They gave the strange turn a season before judging it, because they had traced enough tracks backward to know that the web's detours have a better record than our plans. I want you to do something tonight. Trace one track backward. Take the best thing in your life, the person, the child, the home, and walk backward through every accident that had to happen for it to exist. The chance meeting, the delay, the failure that turned you. Do it honestly, and you will find what everyone finds. The best things in your life are all standing at the end of a chain of coincidences too long and too precise to be called by that word with a straight face. Your whole life has been placed. You have just never read it in that direction. I will give you one placement story because placements deserve at least one told all the way through. A woman I knew years back missed a flight, and this was not a small miss. It was the flight to a reunion she had waited 2 years for, and she missed it by 4 minutes because of a stalled truck on the highway, and she stood at the gate and wept with frustration. Wept. She told me later she said terrible things to the sky in that airport. Why me? Why today? Why does everything always break? The next flight was not until morning, so she spent the night in an airport hotel, went down to the small restaurant to eat a miserable dinner alone, and was seated next to an elderly woman who was also alone, also stranded, also eating a miserable dinner. And they began to talk. And the old woman over the course of that evening told her things about grief, about her late husband, about what she wished she had done differently in her 60s that landed in my friend's life like keys landing in locks. She was at that time quietly drowning in her own marriage, in her own postponements. And this stranger, this stranded old woman she would never see again, said the exact words that turned her. She went home and changed her life, rebuilt the marriage, started the thing she had postponed for a decade. And she told me years later that she thinks about it all the time, that everything good in her last 20 years traces back through a stalled truck she cursed to the sky. 4 minutes. She needed to miss that plane by 4 minutes to be at that table. And the teaching is not that the web stalls trucks for our convenience. I do not know how any of it works, and I distrust anyone who claims they do. The teaching is humbler than that. It is simply this: you do not know in the moment of the closed door what the door is doing. You have never once known. So the old response, placement, let us see, is not mysticism. It is accuracy. It is the only response that matches how little we can see from where we stand. And the third kind, and this is the one I must speak carefully about, is the visit. These are the timings that come wrapped around the ones we have lost. And every person my age knows exactly what I am talking about. And almost none of you have said it out loud. The cardinal that appeared at the window the morning of the funeral and returned every day that first terrible month. The smell of his tobacco or her perfume in a room where it could not be. On the anniversary, on the birthday, on the night you finally broke down. The dream that was not like other dreams. You know the difference. Everyone knows the difference. The dream where they were there, truly there, and they looked well, and they said the thing you needed, and you woke with the feeling of having been somewhere, not of having imagined something. The modern world pats your hand and says, grief plays tricks. And I want to ask the modern world one question. Why are the tricks so kind? Why does the trick come on the exact day? Why does the song play at the exact minute? Grief is with you every hour of every day, but the so-called tricks concentrate themselves with perfect timing at the exact moments when a visit would mean the most, which is, if you notice, precisely how a loving person behaves. My people never believe the dead go far. The web does not release a thread just because a body is buried. The thread changes. It does not break. And the ones on the other end of it remain on the other end of it. And now and then, within whatever laws govern these things, they pull. I cannot prove that to you. I would not try. But I have sat with hundreds of grieving people over 50 years, and I will tell you what I know from that chair. The visits are real enough to change faces. I have watched a widow of 1 year describe the bird at the window and become for a moment 20 years younger. Whatever is happening in these moments, it is not a malfunction, it is a mercy. And I long ago stopped believing that mercies arrive by accident. So, what do you do with all of this? The old way answers, you learn to read. A person who believes in coincidences walks through their life like a person walking through a library where every book is closed saying, "Strange, so much paper." A person who has learned to read walks through the same library and cannot stop finding messages with their name on them. The summons, answer it the same day, every time. The placement. When your plans collapse before you despair, say the old words, let us see, and give the detour a season. The visit, receive it, stop arguing with it. Say thank you out loud. It costs you nothing, and I suspect it is heard. And above all, tell your stories tonight in the comments and at your tables, because I will tell you the real damage the word coincidence has done. It has not just closed individual eyes, it has silenced the stories. Every family used to pass these accounts down. The warning dream, the impossible timing, the sign at the grave. And the stories taught each new generation that the web was real and they were held in it. Now everyone has the experiences and nobody tells the stories. So every person thinks they are the only one sitting alone with a wonder they are embarrassed by. You are not the only one. Look at the comments under this video in a few days, and you will see hundreds of people, thousands, all carrying the same unexplainable kindnesses, all quiet about it for decades. The web has been writing to every one of you all along, patient as ever. You were never unnoticed. You were never unaccompanied. You were only taught not to read. Class is over. Read. And I will leave you with this because I can feel the question some of you are holding. You are thinking, but what if he is wrong? What if it really is all chance, all randomness, all a machine after all? Fair. I cannot close that door for you, and I will not pretend to. So let me answer as a practical old man instead of a mystic. Consider what each belief costs and what each belief pays. Believe it is all coincidence, and you get to be modern and reasonable and right at dinner parties. That is the entire payment. And the cost is that your sister's phone call becomes noise. Your placements become luck. Your visits become malfunctions of grief, and you walk to the end of your days through a world that never once meant anything by anything. Now believe the old way, and the cost is that some clever person may smile at you. That is the entire cost, and the payment is that you live inside a world that is watching you, writing to you, holding your thread, keeping your appointments, and sending its small mercies with perfect timing until your last morning. I have watched people live both ways for 70 years. I have watched what each belief does to a face over decades. And I am telling you, as plainly as I have ever said anything on this channel, the readers age better than the shruggers every time. So choose like an elder, not like a student afraid of being marked wrong. You have earned the right to trust your own 70 years of evidence over a word that was only ever a shrug wearing a suit. If what you heard today stayed with you, the book is there. The Native Way. 20 teachings, 100 pages written the way I would speak to you if we were sitting together. With your phone or find the link in the comments. Read one chapter. Sit with it. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments the one coincidence in your life you have never been able to explain. I read every comment, and if this is the kind of conversation you have been looking for, subscribe to this channel. We are not collecting viewers here. We are collecting people who remember. Come back next week. I am not done teaching.